Good morning. Another day of algebra, Thursday. Today we're going to do study guide lesson 11, solving for a variable in formulas. Before we begin, there's a couple things I want to talk about. Several students and parents are asking me for more help on topics that they need more practice or seeing other problems. And so you online people, all kids really, can use this internet. I don't know why kids don't use it more, but all you have to do is type in the topic that I always have under the study guide lesson number. So today we have solving, and you can see I already did a little search for a variable and a formula. That's what the study guide says today. So if you go there and just do a Google search, you get all kinds of things that will help you on, get this down to where it's video. Click on the videos is even better. Khan Academy is one that a lot of kids use, but sometimes they get kind of boring. But you can watch all kinds of videos. Look at this. There's 366,000 videos that somebody made out there. People made to help you. I don't know who has the time to make all these videos, but they do. And so they're really, really handy for helping you. Let's just kind of take one look here. Solving for a specific variable, YouTube. Let's check this one out just for fun. Sooner or later, you'll find...
Welcome to the video on solving literal equations and formulas. This will be a lesson on this topic, and let's go to take a look at our objectives here. So the first thing I want to do is define literal equations and formulas. And then next we're going to understand the process to solve a literal equation and formula for a particular variable. Now, two things before we get going. The first is you really already need to know how to solve multi-step equations. I mean, really be comfortable with all the inverse operations,
That's what we did
distributive
yesterday.
property, etc. Okay, so if you struggled a little bit with solving equations, you're going to have a tough time here. Matter of fact, I wouldn't even really recommend watching this lesson until you go back and know how to solve multi-step equations. Okay, which means you're going to have to know how to solve one-step and two-step equations. But assuming that you feel good about your equation solving
move
ability,
it forward a little bit to where
let's
you're solving
go
a
ahead
problem.
and define what his time was 1 hour.
Let's see
we're
where
solving for D. In this case, we're solving for T, is the whole essence of what we're studying. If I'm solving for T in this equation here, I want to think of R and D as numbers. Okay. The second thing is you need to take the same steps as you would take if you were solving a multi-step equation, treating all other variables, with the exception of the variable you're solving for, as numbers. Okay. Then last but not least is you want to use parentheses to group sums or differences, and we'll talk about that when we
encounter, you get the idea.
An example.
300,000 videos that could help you. All right, so here's today, even though it's not bold because the video will be under here tonight or after I'm done recording this, but there's your guided notes. There's your lessons practice sheet for today. Print those off, do the guided notes as you watch this video, and then do the practice sheet here as well, okay? All right, let's get started on today's. I'm having a little bit of problems with my computer still, so I'm working on it. So there's our warm-ups for the day. If you'll do those warm-ups real quick, then pause the video and get back and let's see how we did. All right, so hopefully you're back. I want to try to go through this pretty quick. Vocabulary, let's see if my pad's working. I'm having all kinds of problems today. The letter used to represent a number is called a variable. There we go. This is the third time I've started this video. We want to evaluate the expression if RT, if R is 4. So that means times right there when a letter is touching a letter. So really I want 4 times 7, which I know is 28. Solve this equation. I didn't really give you a lot of room underneath, so we're going to have to do a lot of these to the side here. You probably already figured that out because you're already done with this. I want to add 24 to both sides. I got 3x equals, looks like 30. Let's divide by 3. And I got x equals 10. This problem I want to do way over here. Solve this equation. I got 4x plus 14 equals 2x plus 20. I like to do my variables first, so that way, like yesterday, if they cancel out, I already know it's a no solution or one solution, or if they're canceling out, it's no solution or infinite solution. So I'm going to subtract my 2x's. I still have some x's, so I know there's at least one solution for this problem. Since I work to get my x's to the left, I want to get rid of my 14. I got 2x equals 6. Let's divide by 2, x equals 3. Just like that guy just got done saying. It's very important that you know how to manipulate these equations around. Okay, so let's move on down to number 5. He said solve this equation. That one looks very similar to the other one. I got more x's on the left, so I want to subtract 2 x's. I got 3x plus 2 equals a negative 9. Let's subtract 2. Now I got 3x equals a negative 11. Last step, let's divide by 3. I got x equals, it's going to be a negative because negative divided by positive is a negative. 3 goes into 11 3 times, that would be 9, and I have 2/3 left over. Or as a decimal, it's going to be a negative 3.6 repeating. 2 divided by 3 is a 0.6 repeating. All right. Don't let the word literal equations scare you. It's kind of all that means is letters. In science, often we will have formulas that we use, and in science we're going to be needing to be able to manipulate these formulas so that we can make it as easy as possible for us to do repeated math problems. So here's a formula that you often use. It's called the formula equals distance equals rate times time. And they're going to ask us to rearrange these things to isolate one of the variables. So the first thing, and I would highlight some of these things, these are notes that you would be normally writing in a notebook. Locate the variable that you're asked to solve. This is like where we start. They'll say solve for R, or they'll say solve for T. Then we want to look and study the problem. Just like that guy said, treat them or think of them letters as numbers. But we want to identify the operations on that variable. So like up here we have R times T, that's a multiplication. And we want to think about things like that. If they were numbers and I was trying to get the T by itself and R was a 2, well, I would divide both sides by 2. And then that's what we're talking about now is we want to do inverse operations to undo or isolate the variable. Okay. All right. So let's go down and look at this one here. First of all, they said, here's this guy who won a wheelchair race in the Boston Marathon and with a time of about 1.3 hours. They told us that the race was about 26.2 miles. What was his average speed? So here we go. It says use this formula and round your answer to the nearest tenth. So the question asks for speed, so we want to solve the formula for R. So here's the first direction. We want to get the R by itself. D equals RT. So let's try this. Let's say D equals RT. Right now that says times, and so I look for the variable they want me to get by itself. So they want me to get the R by itself. So I identify that. Now, I want to focus on this guy. How am I going to get rid of a T? If that said this, let's say, I don't know, I'm just making this up. 4 equals 2x, and I asked you to get the x by itself. Wouldn't you divide by a 2? Well, we're going to get rid of the T. So we want to say, let's divide by a T. Now this looks kind of weird because we don't know what a D and a T are yet. So let's rewrite our formula with the variable first. They asked us to solve for R, D over T. So now we have that variable by itself, r, like they asked over here. Now we want to take these numbers. So that's the first part of the question. We want to take these numbers now, and it says the race was about this many miles. So that's my distance. And that is the D in the formula. So now I'm going to rewrite my formula, plug in the numbers in. R equals 26.2. Let's see, we got other information. It took about 1.3 hours. Well, that's my time. So I'm going to do 1.3. And this is where your calculator comes in. Super handy. You got to find mine. Here it is. So we want to take now and solve this math problem. 26.2 divided by 1.3. I'm getting 20. No, I messed it up. Sorry. 26.2 divided by 1.3. Yeah, I'm getting 20.153. So normally we round to the hundredths place. Let me just make sure I did that right. All my decimals, 26.2. Yep. So what is it asking us? Oh, it says round to the nearest tenth. Sorry. So let's round it to the nearest tenth. I just read that. So I got 20.15 and lots more digits. Here's the tenths place. So really it's 20.2 because there's a 5 next door. Now, that's our rate. He's in a wheelchair. He's doing a race. And they said, what's the speed? So, looks like he's going 20 miles per hour. Is that reasonable? This is miles. So if we had units, this is hours. So he's going 20.2 miles per hour. So now we have to write it. I want to just say Van Dyke is traveling 20.2 miles per hour. You could say MPH, 20.2 MPH would also, that means miles per hour. So that's his speed. All right. Let's go down and see what we got next here. Here it says, solve this one. It says solve D equals RT for T. Find the time in hours that it would take him to travel 26.2 miles if his average speed was 18 miles per hour. So we can use that same formula. Oh, we're solving for T now. So let's do that. Let's say D equals, last one we solved for R. And I'm just looking at your practice sheet. You don't have as much room as I had here, and I apologize for that. Sorry about that, but just kind of maybe find somewhere where up here where it says sports application that you can do your work up here. Okay. All right. You probably already are frustrated with that. All right. So let's do you try it down here. We want to do the T. So that means we got to get rid of the R. Right now it says R times T. So let's divide both sides by R. Over here they cancel out. So I'm going to go for my final answer. T equals D over R. Now go back up to our problem. They said he travels 26.2 miles. That's our distance. Here's his rate, miles per hour. And this is my distance. This is in miles. So I'm just going to put miles. Let's do the calculator real quick. 26.2 divided by 18. I'm getting 1.45 with lots of fives, and they say right here round to the nearest hundredth. So I'm getting 1.4 So just real quick in reviewing, if I have lots of 5s, there's the hundreds place. I look next door, there's a 5. If it says 5 or more next door, this one goes up 1. So I'm going to make it to 1.46. Now we need some, it's time. So our time is in hours. Now we answer the question. It would take 1.46 hours to complete the race. All right, they take some practice just because there's no numbers in there, but it's really what we've been doing yesterday. Here's another example here, and this one comes up all the time. In the United States, we do our temperature obviously in Fahrenheit, but most of the scientific world and the rest of the countries use Celsius. So sometimes if we're doing a whole lot of Fahrenheit changing to Celsius, it would be best for us to change this formula so that we can keep plugging in temperatures of Fahrenheit to get the Celsius. So let's see what they're asking us to solve for C. So I'm going to identify the number I want is, or letter I want is right there. So I'm going to rewrite the formula. 9/5 C plus 32. Now just like yesterday, if I'm trying to get the C by itself, don't worry about the F. I do the opposite operations, working PEMDAS backwards. I want to do the minus 32 on both sides of the equation first. Over there they cancel, so I just have a 9/5 C. And over here, I can't put F's with 32, so it looks kind of weird, but it's no different than X minus 32. That's just an F, minus 32. Bring down my equal sign. I still don't have the C by itself. I got to get rid of this 9/5 that's in front of the C. So if I'm going to get rid of the 9/5, we learned a shortcut. Rather than dividing by both sides by 9/5, we said let's take the reciprocal and multiply both sides by the reciprocal. Over here, that's 45 C's, which is 1 C, so we say these guys cancel out. Now on this side, you can do this answer two ways. You can leave it as 5/9 times F minus 32, but you're going to have to put it in parentheses because this 5/9 is times everything on this side. And so that's probably the way we would leave it. So let's go up here and write this real quick. Celsius equals 5/9 F minus 32. The parentheses are extremely important because again, we're multiplying 5/9 times everything on this side. All right, so there's our formula. So just for kicks, because it's been really hot here the last couple days, let's pretend, or not pretend, let's say it's 100 degrees Fahrenheit outside because it has been. So let's do some math here, plugging this in and see how many degrees in Celsius it would be, like if this was a science assignment. I got 100 minus 32 times 5/9. So 100 take away 32 is 68. So now I got 5/9 times 68, just did my parentheses. I want to multiply that times 5. My lights just went out. So that's 340 over 9. And now divided by 9, it is, in Celsius, it's 37.7 degrees Celsius. All right, I'm gonna go run over and turn my lights on. Sorry, I didn't move around enough, so I'll be right back. Sometimes when you're going for a job, they want to know how fast you can type. They want to know, can you keep your fingers on the home row and type quickly? And usually when you're typing fast, you're going to make some mistakes. And so this is a formula. They put you in a little room and they'd say, you know what, you're going to do a lot of typing at this job. Type this paper real quick. And they start a timer, and so you start typing as fast as you can and as accurately as you can. And then they'll say, okay, let's stop at a certain time. And then the person will go through and count how many words you typed in that amount of time and how many errors you did, because you're going to have some errors. So this is a formula that they use for typing speed, and they tell you S is the speed in words per minute. So there's our units, words per minute. The W is the number of words typed by the end of the time, and E is the number of errors. M is the number of minutes that you were typing for. So there's a whole lot of letters in here. So let's rewrite the formula. We want to solve for the W, so I want to highlight it. We want to get this guy by himself. All that other stuff, we want to get to the other side of the equal sign. Now, this is the one that's kind of weird, and really pay attention here because we got to get rid of this M first because he's in the denominator. So before we can add the 10 e's to both sides, we have to move this guy out of here. And right now it says divided by m. So the opposite of divide by m would be a multiply by m. Over here they would cancel out, and I would have a w minus 10e. On this side, it would be just m times s. So I can just write ms. Because if a letter is touching a letter, that would also mean times. Now I need to get rid of this 10e's because again, I'm looking for this w here to get by itself. So now it would be no different than if I said this. If I said 3 minus 2x, and on this side I had 3 x's, and I said, let's get rid of these x's. Wouldn't we add 2 x's to both sides? So it's no different here. We would add 10 e's. I have 10 of these things called e's, so I'm going to put plus 10e over here. These guys will cancel out that I just have my w that I needed. I can't put e's with these ms's, so I'm just going to write ms plus 10e. And I'm going to write it in standard form, my variable first. And you could also write it this way, though. It says the same thing, 10e plus ms. Either one of those terms could be flip-flopped. It says the same thing. All right. So lots of letters. Here's one for velocity. Velocity is kind of like speed, you might think of. How fast something is traveling. And we use this in physics. Some of you might be in physics this year, so you'll use a formula very similar to this. It says F equals I minus GT. Then they tell you what all these letters mean. I means the initial velocity. How fast is it traveling when we started recording this? G, if you drop something out of a plane or something, it starts out really slow and it picks up speed as it falls. The more time it has, it picks up speed due to gravity because gravity is pulling it towards the earth. And how long did that object travel for? Here's the clincher. They want us to take that formula and get the I all by itself. So let's rewrite the formula down here. F equals I minus GT. Again, use the cursive T so you don't mistake it for a plus sign. They said get the I by itself. So there's my I. I want that by itself. Now this is going to be a pretty easy one because it's only one step. It's kind of like that example I just had previously, that if I said 2x equals 3 minus 4x. Well, this is exactly like this, except for we got number 4 here where the G is and an X there. The way I can get rid of this, over here, still says 4 times X. This is G times T. All I have to do is add a GT to both sides. This is considered one term. Remember we talked about terms or wherever the minus signs are? That's considered one term. Again, that word's going to keep coming up over and over. Term, coefficient, and I have my I all by itself because over here they canceled out. So again, I'm going to write it in standard form. Again, you could have wrote it this way. GT plus F. Doesn't matter which term you put first. All right. So we solve for the I on that one. Here we go. Here's some with letters and numbers. Let's see. They said let's solve for the M. So this is what they want us to solve for. So we locate our variable that we want and think about how we're going to get that by itself. All I have to do is get this n to the other side. So the opposite of a minus n is a plus n. Over here they cancel out. I got m equals, and I can't put the 5 with the n, so I'm just going to say 5 plus n. Or again, it would be okay if you said n plus 5. Same thing. This is that tricky one. Whenever I have something in the denominator, I need to get it out of the denominator. Now, we're solving for the k on this one. So this one's going to be kind of weird. So pay good attention to this one because it seems counterproductive. I'm going to rewrite it here. In order to get that k by itself, I have to get it out of the denominator. I can't leave it down there because this says m divided by k. So just bear with me for a second. These are the trickiest ones. I'm going to multiply both sides by a k because that will get it out of the denominator. On this side, I just have an m, and on this side now I have x times k. Our letter touching a letter still means times. Now, I didn't do anything really other than get it out of the denominator. So now I'm going to focus on the k is what I'm trying. So now I need to get rid of this x. The opposite of times is divided by. So over here they cancel out. And I got m over x equals to k like I needed. Going to put it in standard form. K equals m over x. So these are tricky when the variable's in the denominator. We got to get that baby out of there because that's really 1 over k. In this case, it's 1m over k. So we have to get it out of the denominator. So you might even put a star by that one because you have a couple practice on your practice page where it's in the denominator today. Okay, here we go. Let's do the try-its. Pause your video, then come back and let's see how we did. If you just need to watch a couple more to get practice, because this is very challenging, that's okay too. All right, so here's my equation. They want the t by itself, so all I have to do is get rid of that 2. I highlighted the wrong thing. Trying to get t by itself. Right now it says 2 times t. The opposite of times is divide by 2. Now, 2 ways you can write this. Well, first of all, the 2's cross out, so I have a t. Now, you could say 5 minus b all divided by 2. You could say t equals 5 divided by 2 minus b divided by 2 because everything on this side gets divided by 2. Okay? Most kids would just say, hey, I'm going to divide everything on this side by 2. All right, so this would be the less complicated way of writing the formula. You could even do it this way. You could say, hey, I know 5 divided by 2 is 2.5 minus b over 2. So all 3 of these answers would be acceptable answers, okay, depending on how far you want to go. This is a formula here, and when you're in science, you want to pay attention to capital letters versus lowercase letters because they have significant meaning. They want us to solve for the v. So this is like that one up above. It's in the denominator. So it's going to seem counterproductive, but we're going to have to get it out of the denominator first. And the way we do that is we multiply both sides by a v. Now it's out of the denominator. I have a v d over here equals m. Still solving for the v. Don't forget what our goal is. Now I have to get rid of that d. So the way I'm going to do that is I want to divide both sides by a d. Because right now it says v times d. Over here they cancel out. And I have m over d. Okay? Again, tricky ones. Use your notes today when you're doing your practice sheet to look back. Now, very important, I'm glad you watched my video to this far, because today when you do your practice sheet and you're all finished and you're ready to put your answers into Google, it's a little bit different. You have to read. Today, it says use the answer key below to grade your paper. Then use the Google form to tell them how many you got right out of 20. I printed off the answer sheet for you because there's no way that I can put these answers into Google form because we got numbers and letters and fractions and everything. I would have to take a picture of every single one of these problems. So as you go through these formulas, showing your work, and you can see all my work, so in case you miss something, you can kind of maybe see where you went wrong. Check your answers. This is where, again, you take responsibility for your learning. So you just be honest and grade your paper, and there's 20, so each of these counts as 1 point each. So that's 17 has a 2-point question. That's why it's worth 20, and there's only 17 math problems. Okay. All right. So grade that, and then when you go to the Google form, it'll say put in your last name, put in your first name, what period you're in, and then the next one will say tell me how many problems you got correct out of 20. And that's it. You just submit. All right. Tomorrow we'll do a review for the test, and Monday we'll have a test. I hate giving tests on Monday, but all the other teachers are giving the test tomorrow, and we needed to cover this before the test because there's 3 problems on the test that are like this. So with that, I hope you have a good day.